Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. And today is day 56 of our 100 days of DevOps, and we're still continuing with our exploring of Microsoft Azure and things pertaining to cloud. So we've been covering quite a number of things since the beginning of this particular phase of our journey. We've covered cloud, introduction to cloud. We've looked at cloud resources, resource groups, resource management. We've looked at virtual machines. We've basically created a Windows virtual machine, a Linux virtual machine, and we've looked at networking. We've done networking, and the most recent recording or video was on identity and access management, where we talked about users, groups, and the like. So we're going to continue that way, and we have something else for today. But before we go into what we have for today, I quickly want to show you something, and it's something that I really cannot overemphasize. I said it, I think, in my last video or the last two videos, that always try to be careful about how you manage cost when you're dealing with the cloud, because every resource you deploy, there's a high possibility that you are paying for that resource. You're paying for that resource. So I'm going to show you something. Now, let me go to my resource group. And this is the resource group that we have been using since we created the our cloud account, right? So now, when you look at the resource group, you are seeing something. I have deleted my Windows VM, the Windows VM that we created that day. I've deleted it. However, I'm still seeing the IP. I'm still seeing the NSG. I'm still seeing some other I'm still seeing the network interface. I'm still seeing things pertaining to the Windows VM that I did not delete. So the only thing that was deleted was the VM was deleted. I think the OS disk was deleted because I'm not actually seeing that right now. But some other things were not deleted. So that means um those things are being paid for. And now when I come to what is the implication of that? When I come to my cost management, and I will notice that, let me go to this. Okay, you will notice that this, so you can see I've already racked up about one $1 25 cents, right? $1 25 cents. I've already racked that up, and I can go down to streamline and show you the things um that have constituted or that have contributed to this particular payment. I just really want to make a point of how we cannot overemphasize the need or the importance of deleting resources that you are not using. Deleting resources that you're not using, it cannot be overemphasized. It cannot be overemphasized. So when I click on view details, and I'm just waiting for this to come up so I can show you. So I would not filter this, but you can see for storage and charge $0.45 for storage. My virtual network alone has considered about 0.42. Virtual machine is 0.38. I can go further and streamline and break it down to resource. So I want to see which resources are actually taking which amount. Now you can see on the third highest spent, which is $0.21, is my Windows VM IP address, which is costing the same thing as my Ubuntu VM IP address. And I have deleted my Windows VM since 2 days ago. However, the Windows IP address is still there, and it has cost me $0.21, right? So you might think this is small, but imagine if you leave small things like this unattended to. Before you know, you are going into thousands of dollars in debt of resources that you're not even using. So once again, you can see other things, Windows, things that pertains to Windows that are actually not supposed to be there. So once again, the the need to get rid or do away with resources that you are not using, you are very sure you are not using them, cannot be overemphasized. So I just noticed this and I said, okay, I need to actually bring this up. I'm supposed to delete the virtual network. I'm trying to confirm which VM is in which virtual network so that I don't delete the virtual network that is for my Ubuntu, my Ubuntu VM. So that's why I'm not going to delete any of them right now. Delete. No. No. I'm not deleting resource group. I want to delete. One has to be careful when um, working with these things. So I'm going to delete this now. And if you've been following me, there's a high chance that you also have this, except if you have been very, very careful enough to check and confirm that you deleted everything that's related to it. Okay. So while that is, I will look into the VNets maybe later on after the video and then just get rid of the one that's I'm not using. So while that is done, let's go into the business of what we have for today. So the next thing I feel like we need to touch on or we need to look at is um, Azure Storage. Yes, storage is another very, very important thing that you need to know, right? And basically, this is important in the sense that there are some benefits that comes with Azure Storage. One, really, really good benefits of using Azure Storage is the SLA. The SLA for Azure Storage is 99.999, I think, down to 11 nines. So it's 99%. So you have strong SLA when it comes to Azure Storage, right? And under Azure Storage, we have four components of or four components of Azure Storage, yes, but we'll only be looking at two of them because it's really what is at this point it's what is very, very important. The other two we can look at them, whenever we need them. And the first we'll talk about is blob storage. We'll look at file share, we'll look at tables, and we'll look at queues. So I'm going to explain each of these one after the other. Basically, blob is just like your object storage, or if you're familiar with AWS, this is similar to S3 buckets in AWS. So basically, for blobs, you use it to store. Blobs are used to store large files. You can literally store anything in blobs. You can store large files. You can store videos. You can store images. You can store your source code, that's your index.html, your Python code. You can literally store, a lot of things the blob in the blob storage. And for file share, basically, file share is just like your file system. It's like a file system. What it does is you can use it. Let's say you want to mount um an external file for your Windows VM, or you want to mount an external file share for or your file system rather for your Linux VM. So this is what you use file share to do, right? So you can also in Kubernetes. So it's very, very important in when we talk about Kubernetes because sometimes your pods you might have like a central file share where you want different pods to get information from. So you just create that file share and then you can mount those pods to the file share, right? Or you can mount the file share on those pods so that each of them can read the same information, they can read the same data. So and it has basically two we have other there are different types of file shares, but predominantly we have the SMB protocol and we have the NFS. So the SMB is for Windows, while NFS is more for Linux. So when you're creating a file share, something that you should actually have at the back of your mind that if you're working with a Linux VM, then you're most likely going to tilt towards the NFS side. And if you're working with a Windows virtual machine, you're most likely going to tilt towards the SMB type of file share. So tables in itself is self-explanatory. Basically, it's just for storing NoSQL data, any data that is new SQL type of data can be stored in tables. And queues are most likely when it comes to messaging, when you're having a messaging architecture, when you're having an event-driven architecture, you can use queues for this, right? Now, before we go into all of this, now that we've understood what all of these all of these storage types are, there's something that is very, very important. Even I feel like it's the most important thing. And we created it yesterday, but I said, okay, no problem. I need a separate video for that, which is what storage account. We created a storage account yesterday when we were trying to, demonstrate identity and access management. But we just browsed through it. I didn't really like talk about it at all. So now the basis of storage in Azure, the way Azure designed it, before you can create any type of storage, the first thing you do first is to create a storage account. What is a storage account? It is just basically an account that oversees all the storage in that is all the storage that's present in your subscription, right? So you cannot create a storage, that's the storage that Azure have made available, without first creating a storage account. You can't create a blob storage, a file share, tables, or queue without first creating a storage account. So what we're going to do today is we're going to create a storage account. Then we'll look into all of these. What is most important for us is the blob and the file share. So when we go to our terminal, the first thing we want to do is create a storage account. So let's create a storage account. It's not difficult to create. So we don't have any storage account. So you can't even create a blob storage. You can't create a file share and all of that. So let's create a storage account, and we're going to give it a unique name. We can put my test storage account. So it has to be a unique name. You can see my test storage account is already taken. So let me put one. If that is going to go, it's already taken. Let me change this. I'll use the one I used yesterday. So I use Vetrax storage account, and that should go through because it worked yesterday and I've deleted it afterwards. So subscription, you source group, storage account name, you put your region, and then what is the preferred storage type? I think you have you have either the Azure Blob Storage or Azure Files or tables and queues. So let's stick with the Blob Storage, but this is not mandatory. This is not mandatory. You can leave this empty. You can see that first of all, I mentioned it that if there are any ones that there are no stars in front of it, it means that it is not a must. It is not a must. So as a primary workload, um, you know what? I'm just going to restart, just going to refresh this page and start the creation of storage accounts again. Okay, so Vetrax storage account. So we have that, and I'm not going to choose any preferred storage um, type. I'm just going to go with the standard. So there's different performance, there's standard performance, there's premium performance, and all of that. So you can choose that. And then redundancy. Now the concept of redundancy is how many copies of this storage of this account do you want Azure to have? That is where the SLA is 99.999, because Azure provides different levels of redundancy. We have the LRS, which is the local redundant storage. And basically, what you do is that you're keeping your storage account in one data center, right? You can see lowest cost option with basic protection against server rats and drive failures, recommended for non-critical scenarios. Then we have the geo-redundant. By default, Azure will choose geo-redundant because it always wants your storage to have a backup. So it will back up your information or your data in a secondary region. right? And remember, I talked about region peers in the first or second video of this phase. So, and then there's also zone redundant, where you can have your data spread across different zone in in a region. And then we now have geozone redundant. So we have different zones, your data is spread across different zones in different regions. So you can see that Azure has provided so many things to ensure that you do not lose your data. And that is why the SLA for when it comes to storage is very, 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 high. Because one thing that is very, very important in tech as a whole is your data. Your data, your storage, they are very, very important. So once we're done with this, let's go to the next. Um, so you can look into this, the TLS version. You can always make sure you use the latest version. That's 1.2. And you can just leave this. Okay, now I want to talk about access tier. So there are four different access tiers of storage. We have let me write them. We have the hot, we have the cool, we have the cold, and then we have the archive. So most times, if you're working with data that you are going to access frequently, most times it will be on the hot tier, right? It will be on the hot tier type of storage, right? And for cold storage are basically used to store data that you're not accessing that frequently. I mean, maybe like once in 30 days. That is when you access um such information. It's better for you to put them in a cool tier type of how do you call it? In a cool tier storage, right? Because all of these things cost money. All of these things cost money. The higher the hot tier is more expensive than the cold tier, which is more expensive than the cold tier, and which is more expensive than the archive tier, right? Now, when it comes to retrieving data, the archive tier is more expensive and down up. I really don't want to confuse you with all of that. But basically, just have it in mind that if you're working with data that you access every day, all the time, it is best to put it in the hot tier. But if you're working with data that you're not really accessing, frequently, and let's say like once in 30 days, like I said, then you can put it in the cold tier. Now, for the cold tier, it's also used to access infrequent data. Let's say once in 90 days, right? Once in 90 days, you just put it in the cold tier so that you don't pay money because for every of those data that you put, you pay money for it. So if it's data that you access maybe once in 90 days, you can just put it in the cold tier, right? Now for the archive tier, just like the name sounds, it's basically as if you're archiving it, maybe a data that you would not access in over 180 days. And 180 days is almost like 6 months, right? So if you have a data that you access maybe just biannually, once in 6 months. You understand? Maybe for audit sake and all of that, you can just put them in the archive tier. So these are the four classes of data. You're not seeing the archive tier here because by default, you will not, Azure will not give that option when creating a storage account. You have to, when we create the account, we'll look into lifecycle management, then you will now see the archive tier. So we're going to go to next. Networking, we're not really going to do it. You can add a private endpoint. Private endpoint is it allows private connection. Let's say you don't want public connection to be to this storage account. You just want maybe like a private um IP address or a special just the way we're doing network security group where you can streamline security to that particular VM to maybe just your laptop or so you can add a private endpoint for that. I wouldn't touch this. And for data protection, now the use point in time restore. Point in time restore basically just means that um it goes back to, let's say for example you backed up at this particular point. When you want to restore it, you can restore back to that particular point that you want to restore to. So that's like the point in time restore. Now the way soft delete. Now because of how secure Azure is, most times, if you enable soft delete, or they believe that somebody can accidentally delete something that you are still using, or they are aware of maybe malicious actions to delete stuff. So what they do is that they implement things like soft delete. Soft delete means that whatever you delete will not be totally deleted for 7 days. So if you go to this storage account and you delete something from it when soft delete has been enabled, it will not be completely deleted from Azure. You can always restore it back within 7 days, right? So we enable soft delete for blocks, we enable soft delete for containers, we enable soft delete for file shares. So if any block or any container is deleted, then at least for 7 days, and I think you can be able to edit this. Yes, I think you can edit this. If you want it for 7 days, but basically it's usually for 7 days. So for within 7 days you can restore that thing back. So it's really a cool feature. You can look at all the other things, and when you want to encrypt, you can encrypt with managed keys. Like that's a managed identity we talked about yesterday, and all of that. Next is tag, and next thing is it will validate to ensure that what we are creating is the correct thing. So after, okay, then we'll create our storage account. Then we can go into the storage account and start looking at the different types of storage account types, and what they entail. Maybe play around with one or two of them, right? Um so far we've just looked at we're looking at storage, and with time, when we start to do a little bit of hands-on, when we start to do projects, we'll see how all of this connects together. When we get to Kubernetes and we need maybe we need to mount you need to mount a file, then we can now say, okay, we'll link it up together and then perform it. So what I'm basically doing is just giving us, will I say, something like a tour of the things that we need to know, the things that we need to understand as DevOps engineers, right? And if you're a cloud engineer too, this can also be useful. If you want to study, if you want to get a little knowledge about cloud, this would also help in that. So let's confirm if, okay, so our storage account has been completed. Then we'll go to resource. So under resource, you always see this plane whenever you create any resource. It's basically just giving you an overview of what you have created, the account type, performance type, your location, and all of that. So we can implement access control in a storage account also the way we did yesterday. So this should not be new again. We did it like twice yesterday, so we should know how to um, implement access control. Where I'm actually going to is the data storage. So when you come to data storage, you'll see the four types of storages that we talked about. Container is the same thing as blob. So container and blob are like the same thing. Then we have the file share, we have the queues, and we have tables. So one after the other, we'll look into them. Um, we'll look into them, and first we'll go into the container, which is the blob storage. So every blob you want to create must be added into a container, right? That's why it is actually your same container there. So every blob, when I mean blob, or when I mean a object, I can say blob, I can say object. Any object, be it a picture, be it a video, be it anything, you have to create a container first before you add that blob into it, or that object into it. So I can click on add container, and I will just give it test test blob, and I will just create. I don't need to do anything advanced. I'll just create it. So once that is created, it will refresh, and then you can go into the blob and you can add things into this blob. You add a directory. Do I need to add a directory? Let me go back. Okay. I made a mistake. So you can from here you can upload a an image, direct straight up, or you can create a container. Once you create a container, the next thing you do is that you create a directory. Then from that directory, then you can now upload things. So what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to I'll delete this. I'll delete this and just upload straight. So just a sec. Okay. So you can see here it's saying containers to be soft deleted. So that means if even though I delete this, it will not delete completely for the next 7 days. So I can always go back and restore it, right? So I'll just delete it and there are no contents inside. So when I click on upload, let's just upload something. Um, let's see. Let me go to my downloads. Let me go to my downloads and upload. Okay, let me upload this. So there are no existing container because I deleted that container. So we're going to create the container. I was right all along. So you can do test container and click OK. And I'm going to upload. So that has been uploaded. So when I go into into the container, I can see that I have what I just downloaded or what I just uploaded. I have it there. So that is for Blob. Let me go back. So that's basically how you create a blob storage or a container, as the case may be. So you go in, you can upload, you create a container, you upload it, and then you can access files and just work with it. We won't really be doing so much here. What I'm basically doing is just showing us like around the storages, different type of storage, and how we can actually use them. When we start working hands-on with them, with these containers, we'll be able to get a very better or a broader knowledge on how all of this works. So I believe there's no even need to delete it. Once I delete the storage account, I believe everything should be deleted. So we'll move to file share. So like I said, file share is basically you can create a file share where you can use for mounting when you want to mount maybe on your Linux VM or on your Windows VM, and you can use it also in Kubernetes and yeah. So you create file share and then you name it test file and access there. You want the transaction optimized. You can choose the hot. We can choose cool. We can choose this one. Um, okay, and then we just basically you can configure backups too if you want to backup it. You can configure it, and the backup is daily at 7:30 p.m. So we have a daily backup at 7:30 p.m. and the backup retention is for 30 days. So after 30 days, this is going to be deleted. But of course, you can always edit this. I'm not going to make any changes. I'll just create. And the protocol you can see is SMB. So we can create. And if you notice, it created two things. It created the file share, which is test file, and it's also backing up the deployment. So this is what it does. It always backs up your deployment. So what you can how you can use this is you can say, okay, you want to upload something, you click on upload and you browse, and now to upload the same content that I uploaded before, browse this and you click on overwrite if file exists. You click on upload and then that has been uploaded. Now, how do you connect this to a VM? You can just click on connect. So when you click connect, it's going to bring an option. Are you connecting to a Windows virtual machine? Are you connected to a Linux virtual machine, or are you connected to a Mac OS? So if you're connected to a Mac OS, you just show the script. Once you copy this, obviously you type it, you paste it, you copy and paste on your macOS, you can connect to this file here. Same with Linux, you show the script and then you copy and you connect to this file here. And then Windows also, you can show the script and then you use PowerShell, you copy it, you open PowerShell, you paste, and then you have access to this file here. So that is the way you can work with file shares. You can add directory, you can upload, then you can connect, and then we'll go back and we're just going to look at tables and queues. So for queues, you can create a queue. You can create a queue name, and then you use it to do whatever you want to do. Same with table. You can create a table, it's a table name. And once you create a table name, you can start adding key values and all of that. So there are a lot of things that you can actually do, and I won't be able to cover all. I just basically wanted to show you the different types of storage. And there's something called storage browser. Instead of clicking on this this data storage and then opening it one after the other, storage browser helps you to view everything, right? So it will show you your account, it will show you everything. So you just click on it's still loading. So I want you to finish loading. Well, let me not wait for that. So you click on blob containers and then you can see your blob containers here. You can if you click on file share, you can see your file share here. Then if you click on queues and tables, you can always see your queues and you can see your tables. So storage browser helps us to just basically it's the same as going to this data storage. Only difference is that you can just do a quick browse of everything, right? And then when we come to data management, when we go down to life cycle. I just wanted to touch on this before we round up for today. And I click on life cycle management. Basically, what life cycle management does is that there are no rules. We can add a rule, but I'm not going to add a rule. I'm just going to show you how it works. Now remember we have four types of storage. We have the hot, the cool, the cold, the archive, right? And um you cannot basically no, I wouldn't say you cannot you can know, but you might omit. There might be some instances where you would omit a file that you have not accessed for over 30 days or over 60 days. So what you want to do is you want to automate these things. And that is where lifecycle management comes into play. You can set a rule saying that if there's a particular file in the hot tier that has not been accessed for more than 30 days, automatically move that file or automatically move that data or maybe that picture or that video, whatever it is, as long as it has not been accessed in the last 30 days, move it automatically to the cool storage, right? If there's one that has not been accessed in 90 days, move it to the cold storage. And if there's one that has not been accessed in, let's say the file, you've not done anything with that data or with that file or with that folder or with that image or video for over 180 days, kindly move it to the archive tier. So all of these things are automated. Azure would take you know they will take it over from there. And then they monitor which file has not been accessed. You can also set it as the time of created. I said if it has not been accessed. You can also create a rule where you say the file was created 30 days ago. Any file that is created more than 30 days ago, move it to the code tier. So that is the way it works, and that is the whole concept of you know lifecycle management. So you just set a rule that changes one information, one a file from one tier to another tier. Basically, that's what it's about. It just changes one file or one object from one tier to another tier, depending on when it was last modified or when it was created, right? So that will be all for today. I hope we've been able to learn a thing or two. We might not really have done a lot of hands-on in this particular video, but at least I was able to show you how to create a storage account. I was able to explain different types of storage types and what they are used. And then we also created a file share. We created a blob. We uploaded things, and then we also looked at life cycle management. So there are still other things that are involved with storage, but I believe that the more instead of learning it in abstract, I believe that when we start doing a lot of practical will bring in all of those things into play. And then I'll be able to properly explain things so you'll be able to understand better because there's a lot of things that I could actually explain now, but you will not get it because it's not just about explaining, it's about showing, it's about demonstrating how it works, you know, in relation to other things, right? So once again, the way I started this video, I'll end it the same way. Whatever resource that you are not using, whatever resource that you know that you are not using, please delete it. Delete the resource so that you don't incur a cost that you're not supposed to incur, right? So the need for that cannot actually be overemphasized. Before you know it, you start having bills upon bills upon bills, and then your money is running and you're not even getting anything. So despite you using a free account, it is something that you need to actually learn. You should make it a habit so that when you start working properly with, even when you get an organization, obviously the organization will not use a free account. They are funding these things on a monthly basis, and you don't want to, be running them down. You don't want to run down their money because of some resources that you failed to delete, or you failed to monitor, or you failed to, shut down and all of that. So if you've enjoyed the video so far, please do well to not just like the video. Also, if you can share it to those that might be interested in learning one or two things. And then please do well if you've not subscribed to my channel by now, kindly subscribe to the channel and most importantly, turn on your notification bell so that when I post the next video, you're able to get the video, you get notified so you can watch it and then you learn one or two things from all I'm going to say. So I'll see you again on the next video. Enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers.